right, man. Legacy Lounge. Sometimes people want to talk.
We have incredible guests here.
What's up, brother?
The definition of the Legacy Lounge is the stuff that he's putting together. He's a great community leader. His story is amazing.
All right, episode 21, Turner Sparks. Nice to meet you, man.
All
Hey,
right.
nice to meet you guys.
Hey,
thanks for having
welcome
me.
to the lounge.
So we expect you
This is sick.
to make us laugh uncontrollably on this podcast.
Hey,
so.
man, let's do it. Just talk about my career. It'll be. Then we got some jokes in there.
So when I Googled your name too, you
Yeah.
probably already know this, but you're also showing up as a musical artist.
Yeah,
So
that's because there's no one respects stand-up comedy. And Google, like, number one, they don't have, if you've recorded anything in your life, they call you a recording artist, like a musical artist.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I have 2 comedy albums out. I'm not like playing guitar. It's just stand-up comedy.
Yeah.
But the way you release it is in album format. If it's audio, it goes into Spotify or iTunes or like Sirius XM radio, whatever. So they just catch that and they be like, oh, he must be like singing songs.
got it.
So then it calls me a musical artist.
I'm like, this guy's a comedian and musical artist. He's gonna be
a rapper?
amazing.
Yeah, there's no music. I did play music in high school in Sacramento, but in bands and stuff. But no, it would be better. Like, there's this crazy thing actually happening with Sirius XM right now, radio. So my comedy, there's comedy channels on Sirius.
Yeah.
So I get played on a couple of the stations, but you get played as a if you're a musician, you get paid for the writer of the song and for the singer of the song. 2 different people. That's why there's those guys who just sit in Hollywood and like write songs all the time. They never tour at all. And they're like billionaires because Taylor Swift's or whoever, not Taylor Swift, she writes her own music, but whoever doesn't write their own music is singing their songs.
Yeah.
So there was this lawsuit. They were trying to get comedians. We get paid. They wanted us to be paid for performing the joke and for writing the joke, like a musician would, and that failed. So
Good try.
they basically just went, no. How about we just take all you off the air? And everyone went, okay, yeah, never mind, don't do it. Forget that whole thing. We just pay us what you were paying us before. We'll take half of what the musician gets.
That's
it's fine.
hilarious.
Yeah.
Oh, man.
So Sacramento native, born and raised.
Yes.
Heard you're a diehard Kings fan.
Yeah. I was since 1985. I think I was 3 years old. My dad was sneaking me into games at the first Arco.
That's great.
Yeah, it was the whole. So they had a thing. I think if you were 3 and under or something like that, you got in free. If your parents could hold you,
You're in for free.
you were in for free.
Nice.
And you could sit on their lap. It meant like you didn't need a seat. So until I was like 8 years old, my dad was like, all right, get small. He'd bring like a blanket and just carry me and try. I'd like scrunch up. And then then I would stand in the aisle. Looking back, it had to be so annoying for everyone else around us. And I would stand in the aisle at Kings games and just literally stand in the aisle. And like, there was no ushers or anything back then. It was all, they were playing in like a high school gym, basically.
Yeah.
You know? It was a free for all. So for years, I was just, we were at Kings games all the time. I mean, I think we were at the Larry Bird. There was a game when the Kings beat the Celtics.
Damn.
In like the late 80s. And the Kings were like, I mean, those guys were selling real. Like
they
were
selling-
selling cars and then going and playing in the game at night. Do you know what I mean? These weren't professionals. And Larry Bird and Kevin McHale and Robert Parrish.
Yeah.
And Bird missed 2 free throws at the end for the Kings to win the game. Pre anyone we had ever being good, this was like the biggest in the 1980s.
This is a great King
This
story.
was winning the championship for us.
Was this like before Reggie Theus? Like
He might have. Yeah, I feel like because he would have been. There's a chance he was there.
It was Larry Bird versus car salesman is basically what you're saying.
Exactly.
Okay.
That's exactly what I'm saying.
Got it.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
It's wild.
And that old one was on now Arena Boulevard, a little bit past, right?
I think it's an office building.
Yeah, it's a state office building now.
And when you drive by
pass
it-
by it all the time.
When you pass by, you're like, there is no chance that could have been a It's not big enough.
It's not big
to
enough
be a professional.
Yeah, the back
sports
street
arena.
is Sports Drive, and I was like,
Classic Sacramento story. That actually reminds me when you said like the kids get their small enough, they get in for free.
Yeah.
Reminded me of a story. Like my dad was super, super, super cheap. Not saying your dad was cheap. I'm just saying.
No, my dad's incredibly cheap.
Okay.
Yeah.
And I remember he would take us miniature golfing, and kids under 10 got in for like a discounted price.
Yeah.
But when you're a young kid, you're like so passionate when you're turning older. You know what I mean?
Yeah, you don't want to be under
You don't
10.
want to be under 10. And I think I was like 10 and a half. And so we get up and they asked me how old I was. I'm like, 10 and a half. And my dad just got so pissed at me.
Yeah, of
He's
course.
like, I got to pay $8 now.
Yeah.
Like, nobody's golfing today. No, we're going home.
We're going home.
Yeah.
So tell us a little bit of backstory, man. So obviously you went to Jesuit. We have a lot of friends who obviously are Jesuit grads. So it's a pretty prestigious high school. So walk us through just kind of obviously whereabouts in Sacramento, and at what point did you get the itch to become a comedian? I want to hear about that.
Oh man, so that was much later. But I grew up. It's a town like outside Sacramento called El Dorado Hills.
Yep.
But when I was growing up there in the 80s, it was literally just hills. There was I think there was 3,000 people.
That's crazy.
It was farmland and just, half the people were on meth.
Yeah.
It was just the woods and meth.
Sounds like Oregon.
And a few people. It was basically South Oregon,
South Oregon.
everything north of Sacramento. Or whatever, northeast.
Yeah.
And then it wasn't until 15 years later when people started moving in from the Bay Area, and now it's like this fancy.
It is upscale.
You
now.
know,
Yeah.
Very.
I remember for years, like it was a big deal when we got a Taco Bell. And my grandma was the mayor, and she went and like cut the ribbon at the Taco Bell.
my
That was our
God.
only Mexican restaurant for decades. Then I went back the other day. There's now like a cheese sommelier at like the grocery store, and I'm like, get out of here. So it was that. It was just the woods, basically. So I grew up in the woods, and then when I was in high school, they were like, all right, enough of this. You're going to Jesuit. Like, we're going into the city.
Yeah.
You got to go to school with some, like, real human beings.
But you guys, your family continued to live out in El Dorado Hills? Or do you guys move?
No, we lived out there. We should have moved. My parents worked right around there.
Oh, wow.
Both of them.
Yeah.
So our 90, and I ran cross country. And I was telling you, I was in the band at the basketball, football games. So it was this thing. You'd get up at like 6 a.m. You'd drive to Sacramento. We were all in the same little 1 block or 1 mile radius. And then at 9 at night, we'd go back home, go to sleep, and then do the same thing the next day.
Man.
So I kind of just like lived at Jesuit in high school. 'Cause even if you had nothing to do, you had to wait for your parents to get out of work or whatever. So you're just sitting around.
That's awesome, man.
Yeah, I remember a buddy was Jason Siegel? Jared Siegel was a kicker for our football team, and he went to play for Oregon. He kicked like a 63-yard field goal in college.
Damn.
And I remember when I had nothing to do, the kickers would practice on their own. I didn't play football, but they would practice on their own, and so I would just go down and like hold for him.
Yeah.
And he was kicking he'd be like 20 yards out of bounds, 40 yards back, kicking and hitting like 10 in a row.
Dang.
Field goal. It was wild. Yeah.
That's crazy.
When's the last time you've talked to Jared?
It's been a while.
We're gonna try to find a clip of that. That
I think he's around here somewhere.
Oh,
Okay.
man.
But yeah, he went to Oregon and he tied the college record, the 63-yard.
So you moved out of Sacramento a long time ago. I mean, you said 2000.
Yeah, to go to college.
Where'd you go to college?
University of Miami, Florida.
Whoa.
Hell yeah,
Yeah,
dude.
you. Yeah.
I know you. I know you probably had some wild
It
party
was a
stories.
blast. Yeah.
I'm legit jealous, man. That's a step. So the woods, you get over to Jesuit, now you're my.
Yeah, now I'm like, big city, let's go. Yeah.
From El Dorado Hills to Miami.
Yeah. So it was.
What was the intention going out there? What brought you out there? Why did you pick that?
It was sport. No, broadcast journalism was what I wanted to do. And my brother went to Syracuse. That was like the #1 school. I was too stupid to get in there, so Miami took me. And
University of Miami is a pretty prestigious college, but
they were good, yeah. But it was all we specialize in like hot sideline reporters.
Yeah, serious.
So it was like Bryant Gumbel was at Syracuse, and then like I can't even think of like every single hot blonde sideline reporter was at Miami. They were all with us.
Produced there.
Yeah.
who's the big rapper that just did a lot of fun stuff?
Oh, you're talking about we had Uncle Luke.
Yes.
Oh, yeah.
Luther Campbell.
Bingo.
Luther Campbell.
Yeah, Uncle
Uncle
Luke.
Luke.
Yeah,
Oh, yeah,
they
man.
call him down on campus. He's Uncle Luke.
And that wild Miami college football team with Was Ray Lewis?
I'm trying to.
He was a little before me. So
I'm
my
trying to think of who was there at your time because we're around the same. We're a couple years apart.
Michael Irvin?
He was
Irvin? No,
before.
Irvin's older, yeah.
Yeah, we were. You would know most of these guys. So like when I was there, the receivers. This was all one team. The wide receivers. It was Santana Moss, Reggie Wayne, and Andre Johnson.
Damn.
All one team.
Who was the tight end?
crazy.
The tight end that might have been before you too.
So the two tight ends we had was Jeremy Shockey.
Jeremy Shockey.
And the backup was Kellen Winslow.
That's the backup was Winslow.
And then the running backs were the craziest. It was Frank Gore, Clinton Portis, a guy named Najee Davenport.
Oh yeah.
yeah.
He was big. He was big time too.
And Wills McGahee. That was all the same team.
Insane.
Legends.
It was the most
backfield.
packed. Yeah, and then the Brett Romberg was a lineman. The linemen were all very good. The offensive line. The linebackers were, let's see, one from the Bay Area.
Who could that have been?
Winslow? I can think. I'll think of it later. But
And The Rock played for Miami.
Vince Wilfork was there at the time.
Wilfork was.
And then Sean Taylor.
That was Sean Taylor.
Sean
was there
Taylor,
too?
Yeah, and Ed Reed.
Oh,
They were the safeties.
listen, man.
Miami just
wild.
produced dogs.
One of the best decisions ever is you going there during that.
It was the
time.
most fun. Yeah. It
Oh
was
my goodness.
out of control fun. Yeah.
So you're there for broadcasting.
Yeah, that lasted like 3 months.
Okay. Did you end up graduating from Miami?
I graduated, yeah, but I went
Why
into
only
print
3 months? Why only 3 months?
because I was like, I wanted to. I realized that broadcast journalism, it was like at that time. Now I think you have to do everything. At that time, it meant that somebody else just gave you wrote it something and you just said it. And I was
Gotcha.
like, they just somebody sat there and wrote all your lines, and it was Ron Burgundy era. It was like the end of the Ron Burgundy era. So I'm Ron
great.
Burgundy. Like it was essentially those were the idiots in these classes. I'm like, I can't be around these. Like I'm dumb, but I'm not like this dumb. So I went into print journalism,
Okay.
which was a dying medium.
Yeah.
I mean, to major in that.
Oh.
The newspapers still existed, but I remember my senior year of college, they were like, the teacher was like, all right, raise your hand if anyone's heard of a blog. And nobody. We'd never heard of a blog.
That's hilarious.
And about 6 months later, they just blogs took over newspapers, and newspapers all started going out of business left and right.
Yeah.
So, yeah, that was a
So
disaster.
great decision to go there. Not a good decision to go into those those type
Exactly.
of broadcasts.
Yeah. So I
still
never
think
did.
you're winning with these decisions.
Yeah,
though.
yeah. But it was fun. This is
Yeah.
all fun. I had a
Yeah.
blast.
And so you started a business overseas?
Yeah. So when I finished college, I realized I had nothing basically. I didn't know what I was gonna do, and so I just moved to China, and was like,
So not a plan before you even did it?
I mean, I had studied Chinese history and politics and stuff in college. So this is how much of a non-major journalism was. If you majored in journalism at University of Miami, they forced you to have another major. Because they were like, that's a fake.
This isn't going to work out.
Yeah. They knew. They were like, they didn't even feel good taking your money on that one.
Oh my god.
They were like, you need a backup plan.
That's
Before you even got done with
hilarious.
your first plan, they made you have a backup
That's
plan.
hilarious.
So I went. So I did political science, and I started studying about China and the history, communism and all that stuff. And I wasn't becoming a communist. It was kind of the opposite. I was like, whoa, it's who on earth would want to live? Who would want to not be able to decide their own, free will and everything? And so I'm like, well, I should just move there and see what it's like. I had nothing else to do.
Dude, kudos for you, man.
So-
That's
Badass.
wild.
I like it.
I wanted to see from the inside what it was like how someone could convince themselves this was a good idea,
And what did you find?
I found, so I was going to stay for 1 year. I ended up staying for 12 years.
12
You stayed 12 years in China.
Yeah.
Had you traveled abroad before you made that trip?
Yes. I'd been for a week to China on a college trip where we went to all these different places and stuff. But what I found was that they weren't really that excited about it either. It's really, communism is I don't want to get political, whatever.
Yeah.
But I feel like this is safe
No,
to
this
say.
is for sure.
Yeah.
For sure.
You're good. We love communists. So
I don't know this neighborhood I just came into. I'm like, this isn't the Oak Park I know from the past.
You know, different. You know what's so ironic too is that this dude's wearing right now our buddy Roy Yang, our Chinese buddy who's like the best. He just got back from China with his family, but you're rocking a Roy Yang hat. Not even knowing the backstory here.
Oh, cool.
That's right, man.
Shout out to China.
That's right.
I'm going in a few weeks. My wife's there now.
Wow.
So I'm going back. But no, what I found was that communism and like authoritarianism basically is really cool if you're like the one in charge. It's awesome.
You will have one child and one child only.
Yeah, but me, I get whatever I want.
Oh my God.
And so for the people in charge, of course you don't want elections because that's a possibility you might get elected out, you know?
Yeah.
Somebody else might get elected. So of course you don't want that happening.
Oh my.
So, but if you're anyone else, you're like, yeah, it kind of sucks. You know? You're like, well, so in my head, I'm like a college kid going, why? How could they convince all these people that this is a great idea? They didn't convince them. They just were like, yeah, you have no other choice.
Can't do anything about it.
Yeah, this is the way it goes. And people go, okay, I guess.
Wow. And I mean, I'm agreeing with all this. So you go over there, you have to abide by all the same rules.
Yeah, I didn't run for president.
So what did you do for work?
Here's the way I would explain it. What I realized after like years of being there, no one over there even complains about the government. Like a big thing in America is everybody, we love to like whoever's in charge. Like, you know,
exactly.
Screw them, all the way down to the mayor, the local city council. Like they suck. No one over there does that because they have no ability to change anything. So it would be like us spending all day, every day complaining about the weather.
Yeah.
There are people who do that. They're miserable, right?
Yeah.
But ultimately, we're like, yeah, it's going to rain. I don't know. What can I do about it? You know? So you're like, you might be like, yeah, it sucks. It's raining. And then you move on with your day. And that's what it's like over there complaining about the government. Like if somebody does it, they're like, yeah, okay, but can we get back to, you know, watching the game or whatever we're doing?
Crazy.
You know? So I taught English for a year to kind of, I was just going to stay 1 year, like teach English and, you know, basically extend college for a year, have fun. And then I ended up starting an ice cream truck business.
Whoa.
Called it's a New York company called Mr. Softy Ice Cream Trucks. And I opened, my roommate at University of Miami, his grandfather started this company in like the 50s in New Jersey. And I was there, he wasn't there. But, I mean, out in China. So I talked to his dad and I got the rights to open like one truck. And a franchise, essentially. And I opened an ice cream truck out in this town I was in Suzhou in China. And that ended up turning into more and more and more. By the end, we did 10 trucks and 2 stores.
Oh, my goodness.
Kind of built that out over
What was the ice cream
years.
scene like in China before you arrived?
Okay, so this is why...
I love this.
Well, first of all, people are like, oh, like I was coming back at the time, and people were like, what are you doing? Like, that'll never work. Chinese people are lactose intolerant. That's what all these like white people were telling me in California. I'm like, I don't think they know that because it seems to be doing all right. Like, you might want to go tell them, you know? Have you checked in with them? Because it was super popular. Ice cream was. But in terms of soft serve, all they had was McDonald's and KFC had these like windows where, well, this is how popular it was. So there was McDonald's and KFC everywhere in China at that time. This was 2004, 2005. And they would sell soft serve cones, but just vanilla cones. So it was basically it. The vanilla cone thing got so popular that all the McDonald's and KFCs had to open almost like drive-through windows on the side of their restaurants that if you wanted ice cream, you didn't even come in. You stood in that line outside, like a takeaway line, so that you wouldn't clog the restaurant for everybody else.
That's crazy.
And there was like a line of 20 people all the time. And these are walk-up restaurants, you know, not in cars and stuff. And so that's where I got the idea for Mr. Softy. I'm like, well, you know, Mr. Softy out in New York, it's basically Dairy Queen on a truck. So it's like dip cones, banana splits, milkshakes. But the truck drives around and plays music, and there's like, you know, it's a big production. And so I went to New Jersey when I was like 23 to meet with my friend's dad, and I was like, I got a great idea. We're gonna do Mr. Softy in China, and you do it, and I'll be like the general manager, you know. And he was like, what's your background in business? I was like, 0. And he's like, you major in business? I was like, nah, journalism. And he's like, well, then I'm not doing it. But he's like, but if you want to do it, you can do it. And I'll license you the rights essentially and give you like a deal so you don't have to pay too much up front.
Yeah.
And then we'll make the money back as we go. And so I did that. Got a Chinese partner, got another partner.
Wow.
Like
You were a hustler, man.
Yeah, I guess. I mean, I was just thinking like, this is cool. This will be fun. Not thinking even like 2 months ahead.
What was
ever?
What was like the red tape like opening up an ice cream business in China? Was there red tape? I mean, what was that like?
Yeah, it was wild. So it was, let's see, you needed, at that time, China was really pro foreign business. So they wanted all these foreign companies to come in.
Okay.
This is before, they have a dictator now. This is before he was in.
Yeah.
Actually, he's a very good president. I have to go back there in 3 weeks. He's a fine man and a wonderful human being. And people love him. That's why he keeps getting elected.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Exactly.
So this is before all that. They were still one party system with no free elections, but they were friendly to the West. And they wanted all these companies to come in. So they were all trying to raise foreign capital. So they told me that they would give me the license and the permits to do this, but I needed to commit to, within like 10 years or something, investing $1 million in the local market. And I went, all right, but like, what guarantee do you need from me? And they're like, well, just that you promise. And I went, oh, okay, yeah, I promise. I mean, like, sure. That's it? Yeah, fine. What are you going to do, you know? All right, pinky swear, whatever you need, you know? And they went, all right, sounds good. And I realized later it was all because the guy I was dealing with in the local government could tell his boss that he had just raised $1 million. He got $1 million commitment, who could tell their boss they got $1 million commitment. It was all like smoke and mirrors, you know?
That's crazy.
And I figured 10 years from now, either we'll have gone out of business and I'll be out of the country, or if it's still going, I probably will have raised $1 million by that point, you know?
Wow.
That's wild.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
So that was the extent of the red tape. Was this a pinky swear that you'll have
put $1 million in, and then I had to go to, maybe before that, I had to go meet with all the local government officials and get permits. Or I think that once I committed the $1 million, that guy in the local government almost became my de facto agent to like help me go through all the process. Because then he could say he just raised $1 million. He was kind of on my team then. Damn. So then we had to go meet with all these like old, just cigarette smoking, Chinese, like old communist government officials. And these guys, I remember going to their offices and they were drinking tea. None of them had a computer in their office. It was about this big, each office, or maybe even double this size. Like, it was like, remember Steinbrenner's office in Seinfeld?
Yeah.
It was like that. And it was just a desk, like a mahogany desk with a newspaper on it, and then tea and cigarettes. And they would just sit there, read the paper, and smoke cigarettes all day.
Damn.
And I have to go in and pitch Mr. Softy to them. And they had no, I'm like, yeah, I'm going to do an ice cream truck. And they were like, I don't know, what's that?
And they all speak English.
No, this is all in
I was
Chinese.
about to say,
this is all in Mandarin.
None of us speak English.
I
Right?
speak Mandarin.
Oh, shit, man.
Yeah.
This is wild. So did you speak Mandarin before going out to China?
No, I just learned when I got out there.
That's insane.
And do you
That's so good, man.
I mean, would you say you speak it fluently?
Yeah.
Man, that's wild.
Yeah. So I I wasn't very good when I started. And by the time I was going to these meetings, I was maybe 2 years in to being out there. And I had been going to a university, like a local university, doing language classes 5 days a week and stuff. So I kind of got it good. And then I had a Chinese partner who would massage the rest of it, you know?
Got it.
And I remember sitting in this meeting and this old guy was like, all right, so you wanna sell ice cream on a truck? And I'm like, yeah. And he's like, why?
Yeah.
He's like, what's wrong with a store?
Yeah.
I had no answer.
Damn.
I was like, oh shit, I never thought
That wasn't a thing out
Yeah.
there, right?
I was like, I don't know, actually. And he's like, so there's gonna be like little kids chasing around a moving vehicle. He's like, isn't this like probably a hazard of some kind? I'm like, nah.
Ice cream truck, man. That's how we do it back home.
Yeah. And so then I just came back and I brought him like a sizzle reel almost, like a highlight reel of trucks in America and Japan and like all around the world, and been like, see, like they think it's cool, like it's fine. And he was like, okay. And then what happened was he went home and he told his grandkids about it, and they flipped out and thought it was awesome.
Yeah.
So then he came back and he's like, my grandkids would love it. You need to let them on the truck. I'm like, yeah, they can get on the truck. He's like, all right, cool. And he signed off.
That's
So
crazy.
It was all that kind of stuff.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. So that's 2 years in. You still thought, well, excuse me, you went out for one.
Yeah.
You're at year 2. I commit $1 million over the next 10 years.
Yeah.
So you're in. You're in.
I was in, and I wasn't, like I was saying, at no point was I even thinking, like, what's my 5-year plan?
Yeah.
It was like 3 months, 6 months, meaning I'll stay out here as long as, I was also young. I was 25. It was fun.
Yeah.
I had made a group of friends from around the world who were all doing business and stuff out there.
Nice.
And are starting little ideas and things. And everybody was just having a blast. Like I knew a guy who started, it was called Sherpas, but it was essentially Grubhub before Grubhub.
Oh, wow.
And he started out there and he ended up selling it for like 40 million or something.
Shit.
But he started it off, the back of a napkin one day. And
Oh, my goodness.
you could just kind of have an idea and just go for it at that time.
Yeah.
And not everything worked out.
Of course.
But so it was almost like a gold rush kind of mentality,
That's pretty
So
awesome.
were you still teaching at the same time you were having this business going on?
No, my Chinese business partner, who I'd met when I got out there, was 10 years older than me. So if I was 35, he was 25, he was 35. He had successfully opened a cell phone manufacturing company that within like 3 years was valued at like $80 million or something.
We fucked up. We should have moved to China a long time ago.
And so I was probably 23, and he was like 33, and he'd opened it when he was like 27.
Yeah.
And he'd worked at a company, an European company that was doing that, and then realized he could do something similar, went and started his own thing. By the time I met him or started working with him, he had 1,000 employees in this giant plant.
Jeez.
And so he hired me to just, while we were building Mr. Softy, come work at his plant and teach them all English. And he was paying me to do that. And it only took a few hours a day. So the rest of the day I could have to build out our business from his office. He just gave me like a corner in the office.
That's a good setup though with the business partner. Did you
Yeah.
guys make money right away, or was it some ramp up? I love business talk.
Yeah. So
love
it
it.
did. By the way, I'm a comedian, everybody. I don't know if we said that part. I'm performing September 14th at the
We
P
would
Street
get all
Theater.
into there, man. Seriously.
So we did, so it exploded. We had no idea what was going to happen. And day one of putting the truck on the road, we parked it at like a spot, And that was the other. We needed all these permits. Each spot needed a permit.
Oh, wow.
So it was a lot of legwork.
Damn.
It wasn't you could just freely drive around.
Got
it would
it.
be like if it was Sacramento, like you could park by the Golden One Center after basketball games, but that was a whole 3 months of meeting with the security department of that neighborhood and getting a permit. And then that was 3 hours a day. Then you needed a permit if you wanted to be by a movie theater. And then you needed, or at least make a deal with the movie theater or something.
Wow.
So it was all these little
A lot
deals.
of legwork.
Yeah, a lot of legwork. So we had gotten this kind of tourist area that had like a big water fountain show, almost like the Vegas one.
Yeah.
There was a lot of money out there at that point.
Yeah.
And we parked it there for the very first night. And right away, there was a line of 20 people on both sides out each window. To the point we had to have 3 people on the truck, like making and selling. And it went, we put it out there at 6 p.m. and it went till about 10 p.m. until the neighborhood told us we had to shut it down.
Whoa.
And that was like that. And what we found out was that Chinese people had seen ice cream trucks. There was no ice cream truck in China, but they had seen them in like American movies and pop culture and stuff. So they recognized what it was right away.
Wow.
And went, oh, that's cool. We've seen that in the movies. Let's go get that. Yeah. So it just popped.
That's
like,
crazy.
right away.
Oh man.
Yeah, it was pretty exciting. Yeah.
Man.
So profitable sounds like.
Yep.
And at what point now are we transitioning to you finding out about stand-up comedy?
Yeah. So about halfway through that, it was profitable, but it was a tough business because you need permits for everything, and they were coming and going, and you were having to go meet. I was constantly just running around meeting with government people.
Wow.
Just to make sure everything wasn't going away tomorrow, you know?
Dang.
And so about halfway through that, when I was 27, I wanted a friend to open a bar. This guy from like Portland who'd moved to China opened a little dive bar in this town we're in. And my friend and I went to the opening party, and it was tiny. It was like a tiny little bar. And we were just like drunk. My friend and I were at the end of the night, like 3 a.m, the last 2 people there talking about how we always want to do stand-up comedy. And the guy who owned it, he was standing behind the bar, and he's like, yeah, he's like, actually, if you want to do it, let's do it here. Why don't we? He's like, I could build a stage right there. I could put lights in. We could do a show in like 2 weeks. And we were like hammered. We're like, yeah, let's do it. We're doing it. We're doing it. And the next day he called us at like 10 a.m. and he was like, yo, wake up, dude. The stage is already in. The lights are in.
Dang. Oh my God.
I'm putting posters out. You guys are on in 2 weeks.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
Time to write material.
Morning.
My biggest thing is please tell me that your first time doing stand-up comedy was speaking Mandarin.
It was in English, but I'll give you a Mandarin story. So then that was that. So then we were like, holy crap, we got to now like write a stand-up comedy set. We don't know what we're doing, right? We also, there's only 2 of us, so we had to convince our roommates to do it with us. No one had ever done stand-up comedy. Complete, like we don't know what we're doing.
Yeah.
And, but we just made the show. The guy who started marketing the show, he made it free, obviously, because like who's going to pay for this crap, you know? And the bar was packed. There was also nothing else to do in town. There was no, for English-speaking people, there was no like sports to go watch at night or anything else to do. There's no concerts coming through town. So it was like the thing.
Yeah.
So we packed it out, and we went up, and I mean, like, we all did well, but the expectation for us was literally 0. People were coming to be like, this is going to be an abomination. Let's go check it out. And a lot of them are our friends, you know. So that one went well.
Did you have to self-promote? Or, like, how did people find out about it?
There was such a, like, that time, the city I was in called Suzhou, which is about an hour from Shanghai, which is the big city.
Yep.
Suzhou, I think there was 10,000 like Western non-Asian expats living there. So not from Korea, Japan, something like that, but from English-speaking countries, or not even, or like Russians, Germans, whatever. And there, like I said, nothing to do. So, and this was like a popular bar. So when he put out, hey, we're gonna have a stand-up comedy show in 2 weeks, and like Turner and Gino were doing it, everyone they're like, yeah, let's go. Think of like a tiny town.
Yeah.
We're within this big city of millions. Where everybody, so it just filled up.
That's pretty cool.
That was the first one, and so that went okay. So then we started doing it once a month. But fast forward, I'll tell you the Chinese speaking story. So when I was out there, I did it a couple times in Chinese. Never went well. I was terrible at it. I speak Chinese, but stand up in Chinese, totally different, right? So I get to New York, and we can go backwards, but just way fast forward. 2016, I moved to New York to do stand up full time. I only knew a few people at that point, and I knew this guy, Ronnie Chang, who's on The Daily Show, if you guys know Ronnie, and he's in, like, Crazy Rich Asians. He's in a ton of movies. And he had just moved to New York also from Australia. He's a Chinese-Malaysian guy. And my buddy Des Bishop, who'd lived in China, but he was popular in Ireland and was in New York.
Oh, dude, Ronnie's, like, big time.
Yeah. Yeah,
he's got Netflix shows.
Yeah,
right?
He's got Netflix specials and stuff. Yeah, and then another friend, Jocelyn Chia, who's now getting pretty popular too.
Man.
And Des Bishop just put out a special that's doing really well on YouTube. So the 4 of us, I knew them from different Asia connections and stuff. And Ronnie had gotten into the Comedy Cellar first, which is like the big club in New York City.
I've been.
Oh, you've been to the Cellar?
I've been to the Cellar.
Okay.
And I got a kind of a little wild story. I'm going to keep it a little PG, but let's just say, so my friends moved out to Manhattan, and we spent predominantly much of the day drinking and indulging in things. And I think like for the first like 20, 30 minutes of the Comedy Cellar, I took a little snooze. and then like I woke up, they gave me so much shit about it. But that's like one of the most iconic
It's like performing
venues
at Yankee Stadium
in the world.
if you're a baseball player.
Wow.
Yeah.
It's tiny.
Yeah. It's tiny, but it's like it's the number one club in the world. Number one comedy club in the world.
Comedy Cellar.
It's
Wow.
where if Dave Chappelle's in town, he goes up there.
Yeah.
And he'll do it like you won't even know that he's coming. Like he'll just kind of
Unannounced.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow.
Seinfeld. Literally everybody, if they're in town, they go by there.
Yep.
So anyway, Ronnie's at that club, working the club, and none of us, the rest of us are. And he calls us all and he was like, hey, I just talked to the Comedy Cellar. I convinced him it'd be really cool to let us do a Chinese language show.
Oh my God.
I've never performed at the Comedy Cellar. Like I said, it's like you work your whole career to try to get to perform at the Comedy Cellar. And so he's like, I told him you guys would do it. So we're doing it like next week. And now I'm like, dude, I don't really do stand up in Chinese. He's like, come on, it's easy. It's easy. You can figure it out. You can figure it out. And so I'm like, well, I mean, like I want to perform at the Comedy Cellar, but just imagine like you're a baseball player, you finally get into Yankee Stadium, but they're like, but now you got a canoe, and you're like, well, I've never canoed. Well, there's going to be 100,000 people watching you canoe.
Oh my God.
And you're like, well, I want to be there, but that's not what I do. But so then it comes to the night of the show. 5 minutes before the show starts, Ronnie comes in the back. He's like, hey, bad news. So I just got told half of our audience are here because it's a Chinese language show, Mandarin show. They only speak Mandarin. They don't speak English. These are like New Yorkers from Chinatown. Chinatown. Yeah. And he goes, the other half of the show is just tourists in New York City who bought tickets to the Comedy Cellar.
Oh my!
Which is probably what happens at the Comedy Cellar every night.
Exactly. It sells out every single night. They just knew they were coming to a show. They don't speak Mandarin.
Oh
yeah.
This is incredible.
So Ronnie goes, what are we going to do? And Des is, we all speak varying levels of Chinese. And this guy, Des Bishop, he's American, but he'd also lived in China for a while. And he was like, all right, Ronnie, how about you and I go up first and we'll do like a 2-man thing. We'll talk to the crowd and we'll kind of try to figure out and we'll go back and forth. Now, comedy is much easier if you have 2 people on stage together because then you can play off each other. If the crowd's not giving you anything, you can go back and forth. Yeah. And at least you're like, it's helpful to figure it out. And then they go, we'll figure it out. As we're figuring out, Turner, you'll go on first. And just do it. Just do it. Just whatever we kind of cue you to, just do it in that language. And I'm like, what the? And then there's maybe a couple other comedians and this girl, Jocelyn, and then Jocelyn Chia. And then, so anyway, they go up and there's no cue. There's no anything. One of them's do it in English. We'll tell a joke in English. And then the other one's half translating while they're telling it. So it's working what they're doing, but that doesn't help me at all.
No.
I'm by myself.
Exactly.
You know? So I'm like, you're just screwing me. You guys are burying me.
First Comedy Cellar performance
in my life. And then so then they go up. They do very well because they're like working it, And then they're like, all right, now like this guy's gonna do it in Chinese, all in Chinese. Turner Sparks. And so like, all right, I guess I'm doing it in Chinese. So I go up and just bomb. I do it. And also my Chinese, at this point, I've been gone a couple years. I'm super nervous. In English, I'm like, I can command a stage. In Chinese, in a second language, you're like, did I even say that right?
Yeah.
And I'm trying to hit like punchlines. And if I get one tone slightly off in the beginning of the sentence, it ruins the punchline at the end. So I do the jokes in Chinese. I do 2 or 3 of them in Chinese. And that, I'm getting like chuckles out of the Chinese crowds, but I'm also getting like, did we get that? Was that right? Did we hear? Clearly I'm bombing with all the white people. They don't know what I'm doing, right? And then I think I switched back to English and did like okay, and then I closed in Chinese and did like average. And then these 2 other comedians go up, and everyone's supposed to do it in Chinese. They just start doing it in English. Oh. They see me, and they're like, well, forget that. Yeah, forget that. So they do it in English, and then they come off, and they have pretty good set. Everyone's better than me.
Yeah.
And I'm in the back. I'm like, well, I could have done it in English. I didn't know that was allowed. And then this girl Jocelyn went up, and she did very well. And then luckily that was no like audition or anything. Like no one from the club was actually there. It didn't make or break me one way or the other.
Yeah.
But I still, to this point, I'm in at every other club. I haven't auditioned yet at the Comedy Cellar, but I work like. There's like 20. I work every other club in New York City, and I'm still like working up the guts to get back to the Cellar.
Wait, was that your one and only performance at the Cellar?
Only performance.
Yeah. That is wild.
Yeah.
Can you imagine being like one of the tourists that's in there for that specific night?
Totally.
You know, maybe just a little bit, high on some weed.
Yeah.
You walk into a show and that's what you get.
Yeah, you're like, how high am I?
I would dread it being in your shoes. I'd be like, what?
And
Why
to this
did you guys
day,
do
I'm like,
this?
Ronnie, you owe me. Whenever I want to audition at the Comedy Cellar, you're the one putting the word in.
Yeah.
You're getting me.
Damn.
Yeah.
That is wild.
Yeah.
All right,
Man.
so your comedy, well, that's the story that you mentioned, but you kind of got your start to it in China, and so kind of walk us through the progressions after that.
So then we were doing that first year. We're back at this dive bar, right? And we're doing these shows once a month. And the first one went great, and then the second one, everybody bombed. And then we're like, all right, we don't even know what you're supposed to do. We had no guidance. There's no older comedian there who could be like, hey, actually, you should write the joke this way and not that way, or, there's nothing.
Yeah.
So we did that for about a year. And then the second year, this group in Shanghai started, which is about an hour away. And they were doing the same thing we were, a bunch of expats doing it in English, foreigners, Americans, whatever, Europeans. And we grouped up and we're like, all right, well, there's 10 of you in that city. There's 10 of us in our city. At least let's go back and forth. We'll do every 2 weeks. We'll do a show with you guys for 2 weeks at your town and then a show in our town. And then at least every 2 weeks now we'll have a show. And then we started doing once a week. And then we all, as a group, decided we needed to get better. And the only way to get better was to book professionals to come out from America and Europe and headline. And my friend and I started a business where we would run a tour once a month around China, a comedy tour. And we knew all these towns, all these cities, these Chinese cities, at this point had these foreign expat groups, communities that had nothing to do. So we're like, we'll come through once a month. We'll go to your bar in town and we'll put on a comedy show. And they were like, yeah, sounds awesome.
Yeah.
So we started booking American comics to come out. And we would open the shows. We would sell the tickets at the door. I would sell the tickets while my buddy was on stage emceeing the show. And then he would finish emceeing. I would run to be the middle act, and he would run to the door and take over the door from me. And then when I would finish, I would bring on the headliner. And the headliner would be some American who would just kill like for an hour. And we would tour around the country once a week, every month, doing that.
Wow.
And so that's how we kind of got better and better and learned how to do stand-up and did that until about 2016. And that's when my wife and I decided to move to New York for me to do it full time.
Wow. So the headliner, were they giving you a lot of tips?
A lot.
They were giving the teaching that you guys were missing.
Totally. Yeah. And we were telling them, like, this is why you're here.
Yeah.
We were paying them, obviously, to be out there. And we were selling tickets, and the shows were fun. We ended up opening a comedy club in Shanghai. It was about 100-seater. So on the weekends, on Friday and Saturday, you would do Shanghai at the club, and you do 2 shows Friday, 2 shows Saturday. Thursday night, you would do My City, which the club held, the back of a bar that held like 80. And then Tuesday and Wednesday, you'd be in other cities around China. Dang. So you'd get this full week. It was a cool way for these guys to see a country by doing comedy. And throughout the week, they would like listen to your jokes and be like, hey, the reason why that's not working is like your perspective, you might want to flip it, or you're looking nervous up there. You should like relax or whatever, you know? It was just tips the whole way through. And even to this day, like I now tour, I go to Las Vegas a couple times a year and doing the Tropicana. They're now like, we just did the final one ever a month ago because they're building the A's stadium there.
Oh shit, that's right.
They're blowing up the Tropicana to build the A's stadium. But a guy that I go with a couple times a year, I met him by doing those tours 10 years ago. This guy, Tom Rhodes. So he headlines and takes me out to be his middle act.
Wow.
And I'm still in touch with most of them, you know.
Great story.
So, yeah. One of my best friends, this guy, Ruben Paul in L.A., has a show called Ruby Tuesdays at the Laugh Factory every Tuesday. I mean, it goes on and on. There's...
You probably just, it's helped, as I'm hearing the story, you have such an entrepreneurial background, and to tie that in with stand-up comedy and the connections that you, I would imagine, get to make or have to make in order to perform at a higher level.
Yeah.
It's probably helped out tremendously.
It has. Yeah, totally. A lot of those guys, when I moved to New York, helped me get into comedy clubs. You need someone to vouch for you to even get an audition, you know? And they helped set that up. And then touring, like I said, some of the guys have taken me out on tour.
Yeah.
I mean, even down to when I go to LA, I got a guy to stay with.
Yeah.
You know, like 2 or 3 of them are like, next time you're here, stay with me. Because 10 years ago, took them on this tour of China and stuff.
All about the connection.
Yeah.
Wild. You said you and your wife were decided to continue your career there. Did the comedians tell you that's what the next step was? Like,
Yeah, and also to tie it back to Mr. Softy, the government took our business away.
are you serious?
Yeah.
Is that when power changed or something like that?
It was. Yeah, the new president came in 2013, and it wasn't like his directive. Like he didn't come to town.
Bro, it's ice cream. Like, how
But-
can you take?
I mean, dude, the whole attitude of the government changed from like, hey, let's promote. The idea early on was bring in foreign business because we need to build our own economy. And the way to do that, if we can get an IBM plant, well, IBM will need to hire 100 or 500 engineers.
Yeah.
And these are like high-end jobs.
Yeah,
Like,
yeah.
Our people have gone to college. They can now run the IBM. And so there was that times a million.
Yeah.
Every city was bringing in Intel and IBM and everybody, Google. And 2013, the new president came in, and he was like, flipped the whole thing. He went, all right, enough foreigners, get them out of the country. China's for Chinese people now.
Dang.
That's wild.
Yeah. And he just started making it impossible for all these. I mean, he kicked Google out.
Dang.
So he was going to, you know, and so then all those previous government officials who were really excited that we had come, they were all older guys at this point. They'd been around since the 70s.
Yeah.
They retired. And the young guys who took their places in their 30s had more the attitude of the new president. And they had come up in an era where like, well, why should you be here? This is for us.
Yeah.
You know? And so they were just helping sweep everybody out. So part of that was to take our permits away to make us an illegal business. So we couldn't park in all these places that we had made the deals to park in. So if you're an ice cream truck and you have nowhere to park,
Of course.
that's the end of it, you know?
Damn, man.
And then they replaced them with all their cousins and stuff, built knockoff versions of our trucks and parked in all the spots we had been in before.
Dang.
So,
forced your hand.
yeah, they forced our hand. So that was 10 years. We did it for about 10 years. When that happened, I'd been doing comedy, stand-up, like 6 years. And I'd been touring around. I got to the point where I was touring around Asia and doing these competitions and doing pretty well and headlining in all these countries around Asia. So it just kind of was the time to move to the U.S. and try to do it professionally.
Yeah.
And I had no other business tying me there. So comedy was the backup plan.
What was the temperature with your parents, knowing that after you go to the University of Miami, you said you had a brother who went to Syracuse, and now you're selling ice cream and doing stand-up comedy in China. It sounds pretty freaking off the wall.
Yeah, they dug it.
Nice.
They thought it was cool.
Nice.
Yeah, because we were making like money doing it.
Yeah.
It was a good business.
Yeah.
So, Mr. Softy, to this day, if the government wouldn't have interfered, it's a fantastic business.
Wow.
It was never the customer was never the problem. We always were packed. It was just we got squeezed out.
Yeah.
You know.
It's probably probably a profitable business because you probably didn't have a huge overhead. I would imagine.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah. So they thought it was cool. They would come out and jump on the trucks and come to the comedy club, drink with all my friends. They just thought it was fun. We were having a good time.
Good time.
And everything, and the comedy club was making money, and the tours were making money. So we kind of got paid from the stand-up side. It wasn't making a ton of money. It wouldn't have been a full-time business, but because I had Mr. Softy, it was part-time. And so we were getting paid to learn how to do stand-up, basically. We'd figured out a way to do that through the tours and stuff.
So did it take a lot of convincing for. Did you get married when you were out in China? Or
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And so your wife was it a lot of convincing to move to New York? What was that like?
No, she had gone. She's Chinese from Suzhou, from the city. We met at a comedy show. She'd been coming out and stuff to the shows.
That's awesome.
And and so before I met her, she had graduated college in China. She had done her senior year of college in the United States on like an
Wow.
abroad program, and then gone to grad school in England and did that for a year, 18 months, and then moved back. And I met her when she came back to China. So she was really familiar with like the United States and Western Europe and all that stuff.
Nice.
Had traveled all around. So then when Mr. Softy thing got taken away, we both were like, it's time to go. And she was excited to move to
Nice.
the US. Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
So you live in Manhattan still?
We live in Brooklyn.
Brooklyn. Oh
Yeah.
man, Brooklyn's the shit.
Yeah.
I love
Obviously, his
Brooklyn.
face
yeah?
light up.
Yeah. I went to New York for the first time, visited my good friend Dan Hines and his now wife, Anna. They were in Sacramento during COVID,
Okay.
and we're like, they don't have any kids, it's them and their dog. And they were like, I think that now's the best time to make this move. So they moved, I guess that when they moved to New York, because New York during COVID, it kind of turned into a ghost town from what I heard.
Yeah. That was the best time to move there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so they
It was like the only time when rent went down.
Yeah.
yep,
Yeah,
exactly.
Yeah.
So they ended up, they got a really cool spot in Chelsea.
Sweet.
And then I was like, well, I got to come out and visit you. So like I plane touchdown, and just me being a sports fanatic, the Knicks were playing that night,
yeah.
playing the Suns. So me and Dan went out and got to go to a Knicks game. And
Madison Square Garden.
Madison Square Garden, walked through Times Square for the very first time at night. And it was just like, it was overload. It was like,
It's
damn,
crazy.
this is wild. The amount of lights and people. And
Yeah.
I ended up falling in love with New York.
Yeah. I love it too.
But we ended up exploring as much as we could. But when we went to Brooklyn, just the overall vibe, it felt, I don't know, it felt a little bit more quiet than Manhattan.
Yep. Yeah.
And I'm drawing a blank on.
We live down the street from the Barclays Center, where
Okay.
the Nets play.
Yeah.
Is there
Yeah.
is Williamsburg a?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So we ended up going to see a concert somewhere not too far from there, but
Oh yeah.
it was just, I loved it, man. It was awesome.
Yeah, it's cool. I dig it too. Yeah, we really like it. I had a crazy taxi ride the other day. I was coming home from a comedy club. My wife was with me. And this was like, or maybe it was comedy club because it was only like 5 p.m. So we were in Manhattan. Normally we take the subway, but I broke my toe. So we're in an Uber. And this is like how you can describe New York City. This is insane. It was a 30-minute taxi ride. And first we jump on like the kind of like an expressway thing that goes along Manhattan.
Yep.
And about 30 black SUVs go by us, and then all these police cars and everything. And we turn on our phone. We realize that was Donald Trump
Yeah.
because
Yeah.
he's on trial right now.
Yeah.
In,
Oh, yeah.
in Lower Manhattan.
Yeah.
Right. So and he had just got out, and because you turn on your phone and you see the cameras are following him, like the helicopters. So we're like, whoa, we just passed
Yeah.
Trump.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Dang.
And
Wild.
then we get
Wild
onto the
scene.
Brooklyn Bridge, and there's just all these people on the other side of the bridge, all these people arrested. And I was like, what the hell is that? This is like 10 minutes later, you know? And I look on my phone, and it's all like the Palestinian protest kids
Oh yeah.
Dang.
had
Yep.
tried to block the bridge.
Yep.
And the cops came and arrested them all. And I'm like, holy shit. And then there's all these like paddy wagons out there and stuff.
Yeah.
And then we come down off the bridge into Brooklyn. We make a left, and we go past this place called BAM, like the Brooklyn Academy of Music, like a theater, almost like, I don't know, whatever, 1,000, like the Crest Theater, right?
Yeah.
In Sacramento. And there's like hundreds, maybe thousands of people standing outside that. And I'm like, what the hell is going on there? It was the WNBA draft.
Dang.
All this took place.
All at the same time. Yeah.
Man,
That's
that's some New York
That's
shit
New
right
York
there.
City, right? Yeah.
That's wild.
And there's just like Caitlin Clark was like right there.
Dang.
And there's just
That's
a million.
badass.
We got to go to New York, man.
Yeah, you got to come.
I have
so
not. I don't know why.
I have a show every Thursday. I have my own show
Uh-huh.
at this comedy club called Rodney's, which used to be Dangerfield's.
Uh-huh.
So it was
wow.
Rodney
Oh,
Dangerfield's
man.
place. It was the first ever comedy club in New York City.
He owned it?
Yeah.
Okay.
That's
And
badass.
during COVID, it went out of business, and these comedians just reopened it, renovated the whole thing, reopened it as Rodney's, and and it just reopened a couple months ago. And I have a show my own show there every Thursday night now.
Nah.
So what times do you perform once or twice or
Once a night. It's at 7:30. I'm on every week as long as I'm in town. And I book it every week, no matter what, if I'm on or not.
That's awesome.
And so it's all my friends, whoever I think, my favorite comedians in New York City.
Hell
and
yeah.
people visiting from LA.
Dan, if you're listening to this, Thursdays, 7:30, Rodney's. Is that in Manhattan?
It's in Manhattan.
Okay.
It's on the Upper East Side. It's just near Central Park. And go to turnersparks.com. I actually got a link for free tickets.
Okay.
For just my crowd,
Hell yeah.
We'll definitely put that there.
Yeah. So you guys come to that.
No, that's awesome.
Done.
Yeah.
And that's kind of what I wanted to hear. Like, what, sometimes we go through somebody's day, but for you, like, what does a week look like? And obviously, you got Thursday if you're in town and everything. What does a week look like for you in your industry?
Yeah. So I do spots around town, which that just means there's like 20 comedy clubs. And I regularly work probably 10 or 11 of them or something like that.
Wow.
And so that means usually most nights of the week, you're on at one or two of the clubs. Doing a 15-minute spot.
Yeah.
And you're building out new material so that when you go on the road, so when I come September 14th
That's what
to
we'll
the
get
B
into
Street,
next.
I'll be doing an hour or a longer set, or longer than that maybe. And that's because I spend all those nights in New York City doing 15-minute spots, running around town, putting that stuff together. So that's like our gym essentially, right?
Yeah.
It's like your workout. And if you go as a visitor to New York City and you go to a comedy club, you'll see 6 comedians probably at the Comedy Cellar.
Yep.
And what you're seeing is even if they're famous, everybody's doing 15-minute spots because they're working out new material to go take on the road.
Awesome.
So so that's most nights. I would say 5 nights a week, 6 nights a week, something like that.
Man.
I'm out doing spots. During the day, I might be doing podcasts like this or writing, working on new material, or planning out the tour, whatever tour is coming up,
That is awesome.
Man, kudos to you, man. Do you think you guys are going to be staying in New York like that? That's home for you guys?
I think it is. Yeah. We bought during the, I know it was a real estate, right? During the pandemic, when the market was crashed in New York City, when everyone left New York, we bought a place.
You got a half bedroom for 1.5 million, somewhere around there.
Exactly.
Dude, I was so
the deal of the century.
Yeah. I was so fired up when I got back. I was like texting Rene, and I'm like, so good news, bad news. And, the good news, I'm moving to Brooklyn.
Yeah.
Bad news is, we can't work anymore because I'll be in Brooklyn.
Yeah, exactly.
And then I'm like looking at the real estate prices. I'm like, holy hell. But so anyways, you bought in Brooklyn.
Yeah, we bought. So at that time, it's about up 20% since then.
Nice, good for you.
Yeah, I mean, not that we're gonna sell, because if you sell, you still buy something 20%,
exactly.
unless you're leaving the city or something. But no, my wife loves it. The city we were in, Suzhou, it's 8 million people in China, and Shanghai's 22 million. So we're from a village of 8 million, basically, is where my wife's from.
So wild.
So it's big city stuff. So then New York was actually the easiest transition for my wife.
That's crazy.
Because it has the subway system, like she's used to subways and walking outside and being able to get food and whatever,
Yeah.
Just a fun place to live too, man. I mean, I get the Food and Wine magazine every month, and the one I was reading yesterday, and I ended up texting my buddy Dan. They list the top 10 bars in 2024 in the United States of America, and 5 of the 10 are in New York.
Really?
Yeah.
Well, actually, a buddy from Jesuit, this guy Mike Stember, who was 4 years older than me, who's a long distance runner, who set all I don't know if he was in the Olympics or at least the trials and stuff. Big time high school runner. Ended up being a chef and opened a restaurant in Brooklyn that
awesome.
did really well.
That's awesome.
Yeah. There's just a lot there.
Because the restaurant that I went to when I was in Brooklyn was called Meadow Suite.
Okay. Was it good?
It was phenomenal, dude. This is how random it is. Okay, like we go in there very unassuming, and they just gently remind us that we're sitting in a 2 Michelin star restaurant.
No way.
But you would never know.
Yeah.
And that's just kind of how New York is, I feel, man. There's so many gems everywhere.
Yeah.
And the people, I don't know, I feel like California is definitely that quintessential place where you get a lot of people that don't leave California.
Yeah.
And so they make assumptions about how other places are.
Yeah.
And I feel like New York was one of them. But the people in New York were my type of people.
Oh, you mean like rude? The assumption is rude?
The assumption was rude.
Yeah.
But like I said, my first hour, I'm at Madison Square Garden, and the lady, I'm in a beer line, she's like, "Sweetheart, Get your ass over here. I'm like, oh, I love when people talk to me like that. You don't have to ever guess what they're thinking. It's great.
Yeah. Well, the total that's encapsulated. I think the New York spirit is with the Soup Nazi episode of Seinfeld.
Yeah.
Which is just, I mean, that guy's a dick, but people are just quick. They're not rude.
Yeah.
But there's so many people there that you have to know your order when you get up to the front.
Yeah.
I love that.
Because there's 10 people behind you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I've been in those lines in New York where somebody gets up to the front and they go, all right, what do you want? And they go, well, what's good here?
Oh, God.
Yeah.
And you see everybody in the back, like, you can see like the steam coming out of people's.
Oh, that's great.
So September 14th, we're
Yeah.
gonna get as many freaking people to come and watch you. I'm fired up.
Yeah, you guys got to come.
For
Yeah,
sure.
100%.
Have you performed out in Sacramento before?
Yeah, so I do usually the punchline.
Yeah.
But I feel like the theaters, I think it's a better move. This is
Give
my first
us-
time at the theater.
Give it to us.
So-
Talk about that date and what you have going.
So it's gonna be awesome. I see the punchline, but so we're gonna do a Saturday night, just one show at the theater, get everybody in the same place.
Yeah.
And my buddy opening for me, actually, I'm really excited. His name's Nick Ratto. He's from New Zealand.
Oh, wow.
He's flying out from New Zealand,
Holy shit.
and he's gonna do this and make it the start of his tour. And
Okay.
Joe, our mutual buddy, is gonna put him on a tour. And
Awesome.
So Nick Ratto's a guy I started with out in Asia. He was bouncing around Hong Kong and all these places, and we've been friends since then. They have comedy awards in New Zealand. Other countries respect stand-up comedy. America's, we got nothing. So he got voted. He won comedian of the year for New Zealand.
Nice.
And he's, as a favor, is going to come open the show. So it's
Incredible.
like 2 for 1. And we're both clean and not political, so it's going to be in all ages. That's the other thing about moving into a theater. You know, normally I do the punchline, but it's 2 drink minimum,
Yep.
and it's
Yeah.
like you're in a club and stuff. And why can't like a 15-year-old come to my show? There's
Yeah.
no reason why not.
Yeah.
You know,
Nate, you're gonna
So-
be coming to the show.
you're coming.
Yep. Nate just
Did
Nate,
he
Nate
just call you 15?
Nate just turned Nate just turned 20. All right.
Yeah, exactly.
Bring your friends too.
Yeah, exactly.
All right.
Sick.
That's exciting, man.
Yeah, so I'm actually gonna go by tomorrow and check out the theater, but it's like 350 seats. It'll be a blast.
Are tickets on sale yet or
Tickets are on sale now. TurnerSparks.com is the best place to get
Let's
them.
go.
Done.
We'll
Yeah.
get that out there.
Sick.
Awesome, man. I love it.
So I wanted to go. We're gonna go all the way back to the King stuff, just because I love it. Asking
Yes.
this is funny, but your top 3 Sacramento Kings players of all time.
Oh my god.
Ooh, that's a good one.
Holy cow.
I know. Put
This
you on the
is-
spot. Now,
I love everyone.
were you like a big Kings fan back in the day, and then you've kind of lost touch with it?
No.
Or- okay.
I've been
like it.
hardcore
Let's
Okay. So
go,
this is a great
son.
question because
job.
the
because
entire way through. 17 years.
I'm gonna work. I set a goal that we're gonna get my favorite Kings player of all time on this podcast.
Yeah.
Before year ends.
Is Walt Williams still available? Are you gonna wear the socks?
Walt Williams was a G.
He was.
I mean, we got the L Train, Lionel Simmons.
Yeah, of course. Yeah.
He's a huge Dwayne Coswell fan. So.
Oh no.
Big Dwayne
Temple.
Coswell.
Oh yeah, Temple University.
Or was it George? Is it Joe Kite? Who's is
Joe
Kite.
Kite's going
Oh
way
my
back.
God,
Man.
I think
what
Joe Kite
names.
was on the team when they played Bird.
the car salesman team? I love it.
Yeah. All right. So to put it in perspective, last year my brother and I flew back for those 2 first playoff games.
That's awesome, dude.
I flew in from New York. My brother lives in Colombia, in Bogota.
Damn.
And we were like, it could be another 17 years. We got to come to
Yeah.
this, you know?
Yeah.
I mean,
That's
we're
good.
NBA League Pass dying every year with the team.
Yeah.
So, all right, well, it has to be C-Web, I
Okay.
think, in the
Yep.
top 3
Yep.
for what he did, you know.
Yep.
Holy cow. I don't know if I want to go all that one team, but, you know, I mean, I don't know. De'Aaron Fox
Okay.
for what he's doing now. 3 is tough.
It is. It is.
So let me throw 3 players that I think should be in the sentence of all times Kings. And,
Okay.
And maybe you pick one of the 3.
Okay.
So to me, Mitch Richmond is through and through, and then I'd have to put in Mike Bibby and Peja, and then maybe a Vlade as a wild card.
My third was going to be Peja. Well, favorite versus
Yeah. It's got to be
best
your favorite. You
favorite
gotta-
yeah.
versus most influential. I mean, you know, I love Scott Pollard.
Yeah.
Just went through a crazy heart replacement.
I know. Yeah. I'm trying to think of who really fired me up the most sitting in the arena.
Wasn't Hidu Turkoglu.
I would say probably not. Do you know his story, by the way?
No.
So he ended up being a henchman for like the dictator of Turkey.
What the
Holy
shit?
Yeah. And I don't know if he's
heard that.
I don't know if he still is because he's starting to do podcasts again. I've seen recently, and like I think he might have been maybe I don't know if it was the Matt Barnes one or one of those.
Yeah.
But so who's the guy? Not Mehmet Okur. Who's the guy who was like kicked out of Turkey? The basketball player.
Oh,
He just got he was in the NBA until like 2 or 3 years ago, and he's like a dissident.
yeah.
And the Turkish government was trying to find him.
Damn, I'm drawing a blank.
Do you know who I'm talking about?
Yeah, his dad also got in trouble.
He was supposed to go. They had a preseason. He was a,
Cancer.
and it's
Cantor.
Cantor.
Oh,
Cantor.
yeah.
So they had a Cantor.
He
Whoever
just
is
disappeared, actually. Cantor was good.
yeah. So they kicked him out of the NBA for his like views
Yeah.
and stuff.
Yeah.
So
Got
they had a preseason game in England. I guess the Celtics or whoever
Uh-huh.
was on at that time, and the NBA stepped in and was like, Cantor, you're not flying to England.
Oh.
We have intelligence that if you go, the Turkish government's going to kidnap you and take you back to Turkey.
That is insane.
Crazy.
And the word is okay. This could be all.
Yeah,
I could be
I
making
love
this up,
this.
but I remember reading at the time that Hito was like the sports czar of
Uh-huh.
Turkey and was helping them to try to lure Cantor back in.
Dang.
Isn't that wild?
That is crazy.
Like 5 years ago, 6 years ago, 7 years ago. I should say allegedly, although he wouldn't go to prison for any of this.
Yeah.
But he
Yeah.
might come kill me.
Yeah.
I hope that Hidu.
But anyway, I love
hears
Hito.
this, but
He
yeah.
seemed like a good guy. So
Wow.
wait, so you said those three, right?
Of Mitch, Bibby, Peja.
Yeah, I think I think Bobby Jackson probably fired me up the
Oh,
most.
I
Hey,
love
let's
that.
go.
I
Bobby still
love
lives in
that.
Sacramento. Well, he has a house in Sacramento.
He
now.
just got a
He's-
job in
Philadelphia,
Philly, right?
yeah.
So in arena, I don't think I ever got more pumped than like Bobby Jackson out there, right?
Love it.
The kind of years before that, I remember a lot of fun was like
Walt Williams was fun, by the way.
Walt Williams was fun.
He was fun.
Yeah, the Wizard was fun. Wayman Tisdale, there's like a place in my heart for Wayman Tisdale.
Yeah.
You just seemed like the best dude.
Yeah.
I remember when I was growing up, he was always at Rayleigh's. Remember that? He was always signing autographs at Rayleigh's. They would send him out. He was the only one who would say yes. The whole rest of the team was like, I'm not going to do that. And they're like, well, we need somebody to go to Rayleigh's.
Dude, and he
So-
was a famous
I got his
jazz-
autograph like 19 times. He was just always at Rayleigh's.
He was a badass jazz musician, too. He was a
He
badass
was
bassist.
a Grammy award winning. He
Yeah.
has like
What?
5 Grammys for jazz albums.
Left-handed bass player. Let's go.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
All right, so we got C. Webb, De'Aaron Fox, and Bobby Jackson.
I think those would be my
I
three.
like
Okay,
it.
those are dope.
Yeah.
I like it.
That's
are
got to
dope.
be it.
Are you a foodie?
I don't know. My wife's a Chinese cooking instructor.
Really?
Cookingwithyaya.com, by the way. If you want
Whoa.
to take a class, you can do it on Zoom or when you're in New York, you can come to our house.
That's her full-time gig right there.
Yeah.
That's amazing.
CookingwithYeye.com.
Whoa.
Yeah.
Oh, we got to check that out.
Yes.
Oh, man.
She's actually she's at China right now, in a like a culinary institute doing like a 3-week intensive course to like sharpen her skills and stuff.
So with
Chinese
her
food.
being so badass, does she go to do you guys even go to places because she's judging it or like?
Well, we don't eat out Chinese food almost ever.
Yeah.
Because she's like, this sucks. This sucks. You know?
You know how lucky you are, man. That is awesome.
Yeah. Although Frank Fats is good in downtown.
It is.
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah, yeah.
It is still
Banana cream pie.
Iconic.
That's great.
But yeah.
All right.
So she cooks a lot, and then I do all the dishes. And then we eat out a bit in New York. But what were you gonna ask?
No, usually we put their top 3. Like if you're gonna eating out, your restaurants that you like to go to. Do you have? I mean, you've been in some. I mean, you're out in the mecca of some food out there.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm
Yeah.
such an idiot.
No, it's
I
all
eat
good.
like
That's
just
why I
like
asked.
after I get out of a show at midnight, I'll get a slice of pizza and go home. You know.
Awesome.
Well, the last one would be, if you can have dinner with one person, dead or alive, who would it be?
Yeah.
You don't get asked that every Tuesday.
I'm gonna say Walt Williams.
Oh, I love it. I love it.
No, Norm Macdonald. Norm Macdonald's my favorite comedian of all time.
Hell yeah.
Yeah, and he's been my favorite since I was 12. Since like he took over the news on Saturday Night Live.
Man.
So
Rest
shout
in
out,
peace, right?
Shout out Norm. Rest in peace, Norm. Rest in
Yep.
peace, OJ. All of them.
All of them.
The big two. Yeah, they're
great.
linked for life.
That's great.
Norm got fired for making OJ jokes in the 90s. So
That's great. And then last but not least, one more on the way out. What does leaving a legacy mean to you?
oh man. I would say leaving a place better than you found it.
Yes.
You know?
Amen.
Yes.
So that would be it. Hopefully, you know, there's still ice cream trucks in China. There are. They all look exactly like mine. I didn't really do that on purpose, but
That's so good.
yeah.
That's so
if you
good.
see something that looks like an ice cream truck out there, that's because we were out there 10 years ago.
That's great, man.
What a great way to end.
Turner,
man.
thanks for coming in, man. We appreciate you.
Dude, Chris, Rene, thanks for having me out.
Yeah,
guys.
Appreciate it.
Yeah.
Looking forward to your show in Sacramento. Let's get this thing sold out.
Definitely. Let's
Easy.
do it.
Let's
Right
do
on.
it.
Get your tickets
All right.
now.
We out.